I'm 25, and my sister Emily is 27. We've never been particularly close, but we weren't enemies either. Just two siblings who coexisted, mainly because we had no other option. From a young age, Emily always found a way to make everything about herself. To avoid conflict, I learned to keep my distance. I still live with my parents, not by choice, but because I'm saving to move out. I have a steady job and a good income, but with the current economy, renting alone is costly. I'd rather wait until I can afford a place I truly like. Emily, however, has always been extravagant with money. She recently bought a high-end luxury car, one so expensive I couldn't fathom how she afforded it. Naturally, she made sure everyone knew about it. She flaunted it at every family event, took countless photos, and dropped subtle hints about how some people would never own nice things if they wasted money on unnecessary luxuries, whatever that meant. Lately, she'd been acting stranger than usual, more self-satisfied. She kept making snide remarks directed at me. Maybe if you put in more effort, you'd have your own place by now, or public transportation must be exhausting. I don't know how you handle it. I ignored her. It wasn't worth the argument. But then one morning, everything blew up. I was in the kitchen making coffee when Emily stormed in, screaming at the top of her lungs. Before I could process what was happening, she was in my face, shoving her phone at me, accusing me of being a jealous maniac who had crossed the line. Confused, I stepped back and finally grasped what she was saying. Someone had vandalized her car, deep scratches along the driver's side, and she was convinced it was me. She wasn't just angry, she was furious, shaking with rage. She insisted she had proof, swearing she'd seen me outside late at night near her car. I hadn't left my room. I told her so, but she wouldn't listen. Our parents rushed in, alarmed by the shouting. Mom tried to calm her down, but Emily wouldn't stop. She pulled up a blurry image on her phone, a grainy screenshot from a neighbor's security camera showing a shadowy figure near her car during the night. The image was so unclear, it could have been anyone. It could have been her. It could have been a passerby. But no, in Emily's mind, it was me. Dad examined the picture, sighed, and muttered that it wasn't clear enough to prove anything. But Mom hesitated. I could see the doubt in her eyes. Then she hit me with the worst possible words. Why don't you just apologize so we can move on? It's not worth fighting over. I was stunned. I hadn't done anything. Why should I apologize? I refused. But Emily wasn't backing down. She burst into tears, claiming she worked too hard for her possessions, that she'd always been kind to me, and this was how I repaid her. I stood there, speechless. There was no reasoning with her. Then, things escalated. Emily took her accusations online. She posted about how a certain relative had damaged her car out of envy. She didn't name me directly, but it was obvious who she meant. Our mutual friends saw it, and soon I was bombarded with messages. Some asked what had happened. Others outright called me a terrible person. The rumors spread like wildfire. Then my boss called me aside. Someone had forwarded them the post. They weren't accusing me of anything, but they made it clear that if this became a legal issue, they didn't want the company associated with it. I was humiliated. And then came the final blow. Emily filed a police report. I found out when an officer called, asking me to come in for questioning. I wasn't arrested, but the fact that my own sister had gone this far made my blood boil. I showed up, answered their questions, and told them the truth. I'd been in my room all night. I even had my phone's location history to prove it. But that wasn't enough for Emily. She wanted me punished. At home, the tension was unbearable. I couldn't even look at her. I couldn't fathom how someone could be so cruel. That's when I decided I was done arguing. I wasn't going to beg people to believe me. I was done talking. Instead, I took action. The next day, I ordered security cameras. I installed them around the house, ensuring one was pointed directly at Emily's car. If she was so sure I'd done it, fine. Next time something happened, we'd have undeniable proof. And deep down, I had a feeling something would. The cameras were discreet, but covered all key areas: the driveway, the front porch, and the side yard. One was perfectly angled toward Emily's car. I didn't tell anyone. If she knew, she'd twist it, claiming I was spying on her or manipulating the situation. Number. This time, I'd let the truth reveal itself. For days, I stayed quiet. I ignored her online posts and the messages from mutual friends. But Emily wasn't finished. She made sure people at my job kept hearing about it. A coworker approached me, awkwardly mentioning that Emily had messaged them, claiming I showed no remorse. I didn't react. I let her dig her own grave. Then it happened again. Late one night, past midnight, the front door slammed open. Emily's voice shattered the silence, loud enough to wake the whole house. I sat up, knowing exactly what was coming. Her tires had been slashed. She stormed into the living room, pointing at me the moment she saw me. No hesitation, no doubt. She swore she'd seen me outside. She had proof this time. The same act, the same accusations, but worse. Our parents rushed in, half asleep and confused. Mom turned to me, her eyes tired. But Dad was different this time. He wasn't jumping to conclusions. He watched Emily carefully, his expression unreadable. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I just told them to wait. Emily wasn't expecting that. She'd prepared for me to explode, to give her more ammunition. But I didn't. Instead, I pulled out my phone, turned on the TV, and mirrored the security feed for everyone to see. Silence. The footage began from a few hours earlier. The driveway was empty. No one outside. Then, movement. A hooded figure slipped out the front door, moving swiftly toward Emily's car. The camera angle was perfect, clear enough to see everything. The person stopped at the driver's side, bent down, and pulled something from their pocket. A sharp, deliberate motion. The tires deflated instantly. The figure straightened, glanced around, then hurried back inside. Emily. It was her. The room froze. The only sound was the video replaying on loop. Mom covered her mouth. Dad exhaled sharply. Emily stood motionless, her face pale. She blinked rapidly, as if trying to process what had just happened, then suddenly shook her head. "That's not me. It's edited. You faked this." Dad turned to her, his voice eerily calm. "Emily, we just watched you do it." Emily started trembling, but it wasn't fear, it was panic. She looked at me, then at the TV, then back at me, her hands clenching and unclenching. "You set me up," she whispered, her voice breaking. "You made it look like me. This isn't real." No one spoke. Then, as if things couldn't get worse, there was a knock at the door. The police had arrived. Emily spun around, her eyes darting between the door and the TV. She still had a chance to spin another lie, but when Mom turned to her, her eyes filled with disappointment. Something in Emily snapped. Her breathing turned ragged, her hands shook violently. She whirled back to me, her face contorting with rage, and then she exploded. "You deserved it!" she screamed. "No more lies, no more pretenses. You always act so perfect, like you're better than me. You think you're so smart, so innocent." A sharp knock interrupted her outburst. Dad answered the door, letting the officers in. They stepped into the tense room, glancing between us. One of them asked about the call. Before anyone could speak, I replayed the footage. No words were needed. The video told the whole story. Emily shook her head repeatedly, her face crumbling. I didn't mean to. No one believed her now, not even herself. The officers reviewed the footage, replaying it to ensure they hadn't missed anything. One of them turned to me, asking if I wanted to press charges for the false accusations. Emily's head snapped toward me, her breath hitching, but I didn't answer immediately. Instead of admitting defeat, Emily scrambled for excuses. Her voice trembled as she claimed she'd only done it to prove a point. She ranted about feeling unfairly treated, about how no one ever believed her, and how she'd staged the whole thing to expose so-called favoritism in our family. It was nonsense, a desperate attempt to justify her actions. Dad's expression darkened as she spoke. He cut her off sharply, demanding to know why she'd gone this far. There was no excuse for filing a false police report, for slandering me online, for trying to ruin my reputation. He asked her if she had any idea what she'd done to me. Mom stood silently, her arms crossed, devastation in her eyes. Emily had lied to her, played the victim, and dragged the entire family into her mess. I took a breath and finally spoke. I told the officers I wanted to press charges. Emily had turned people against me, nearly cost me my job. If I hadn't had proof, her accusations would have stuck. This wasn't a mistake, it was deliberate. I wasn't letting her walk away without consequences. The moment I said it, Emily's body sagged. Tears streamed down her face as she begged me to reconsider, claiming she'd never meant for things to go this far. Her voice cracked as she apologized, but the words rang hollow. She wasn't sorry for what she'd done. She was sorry she'd been caught. I didn't respond. The damage was done. Outside, the truth was spreading. Without me lifting a finger, Emily's own friends turned on her. Screenshots of her accusations circulated online. The same people who'd defended her now demanded answers. She panicked, deleting posts, locking her accounts, even deactivating some. But it was too late. The internet never forgets. The officers didn't arrest her on the spot, but they took her in for questioning. She glanced at our parents one last time before leaving, her face blotchy from crying. Mom turned to me, her voice breaking, and asked if I was sure about this. I could hear the desperation in her tone. She wanted me to drop it, to move on like before. But Dad disagreed. He said Emily needed to face the consequences. If she got away with this, what would stop her from doing it again? I stood by my decision. That night, Emily didn't return. She stayed with a friend, likely the only one she had left. The house was quiet for the first time in weeks, but it didn't feel peaceful. It felt like the calm before another storm. The legal process began, though it wasn't quick. I consulted a lawyer who explained the steps for a defamation case. With Emily's public accusations and the damage to my reputation, we had a strong case, but it would take time. Days passed before Emily reached out again. She sent a long, dramatic text, apologizing, but still shifting blame. She claimed she'd been struggling, that no one cared about her pain. She admitted mistakes, but begged me to drop the case, saying she didn't deserve to have her life ruined over one bad decision. I didn't reply. I forwarded the message to my lawyer and blocked her number. After that, I never heard from her directly again. But it wasn't over. Others began sharing stories about her past behavior. Similar stunts, though not as extreme. It made me wonder how long she'd been getting away with lies. The fallout wasn't just social. Emily's financial troubles piled up. Legal fees and the vandalism case took a toll. She initially tried to handle it alone, but as expenses mounted, she turned to our parents for help. For the first time, Dad refused. He told her she'd made this mess and had to clean it up herself. Things at her job worsened too. Word spread, and her boss issued a formal warning. Co-workers who'd once listened to her now avoided her. That was when she finally broke. She sent me a long message offering to settle. She'd pay me off if I dropped everything. It was filled with excuses. She hadn't meant for things to escalate. She'd acted out of frustration. She'd make it right if I just let it go. I didn't respond. I forwarded it to my lawyer. Emily must have realized she was cornered because she suddenly announced she was moving out of state. She framed it as a fresh start, but it was obvious she was running. My lawyer was ahead of her. Legal action ensured she couldn't flee without facing the lawsuit. Then came the final blow. A court date was set. Emily had no choice but to hire a lawyer. The police had already started investigating her after I presented the footage, and now, with the court case underway, her options dwindled. Her lawyer argued she'd acted out of emotional distress, claiming she hadn't been thinking clearly. But the footage told a different story. It showed her sneaking out, vandalizing her own car, and storming back inside as if she'd uncovered some injustice. There was no panic, just calculation. Then, something unexpected happened. One of Emily's former friends came forward, revealing she had a history of exaggerating stories and bending the truth. This friend recalled Emily making comments about teaching me a lesson and even researching how to make car scratches look worse without causing real damage. The revelation shocked everyone. This wasn't a moment of anger, it was premeditated. Another blow came when forensic analysts examined the blurry photo Emily had given the police. They discovered the timestamp had been altered. She'd tampered with evidence to support her lies. This opened a new investigation. At home, things worsened for Emily. Dad cut her off financially, refusing to pay for her legal fees or rent. But Mom, still in denial, kept making excuses, until she discovered Emily had been stealing money from their joint account. Small amounts at first, but over time, it added up to thousands. Mom was stunned. She'd defended Emily at every turn, only to learn Emily had been exploiting her. For the first time, Mom saw the truth. Emily wasn't just making mistakes, she was manipulative. Meanwhile, my case grew stronger. My lawyer said victory was almost certain. Emily must have known it too because she tried damage control. She posted a lengthy apology online, blaming her mental health and emotions. But few believed her. More people came forward with stories of her deceit. Then Emily tried to run again, booking a flight out of state. But my lawyer intervened. She couldn't leave until the legal matters were resolved. Her problems multiplied. Tampering with evidence led to another investigation. What started as a civil case was now more serious. Mom, torn between defending Emily and facing the truth, asked me again if I was sure. But her tone had changed. Less pleading, more resignation. Emily had made her choices. She'd spent weeks trying to ruin my life, and now she faced the consequences. With multiple charges against her, Emily's future looked bleak. And for once, she had no one to blame but herself. Emily finally appeared in court, a shadow of her former confident self. Her lawyer struggled to defend her against the overwhelming evidence. When the footage played in court, the room fell silent. It showed Emily sneaking outside, slashing her own tires and rushing back in. There was no denying it. Emily sat frozen, defeated. Her lawyer, realizing they were losing, suggested a plea deal. If she admitted wrongdoing and agreed to a settlement, she could avoid harsher penalties. After discussion, I agreed, on one condition. Emily had to publicly confess. She was ordered to post a written statement admitting she'd framed me, faked the vandalism, and spread lies. When the statement went up, the reaction was swift. Those who'd believed her felt betrayed. Her remaining friends abandoned her. With the case settled, Emily's life continued to crumble. Fines and legal fees left her in debt. With no financial support, she had to move in with a distant relative. At home, Dad was relieved it was over, while Mom still insisted Emily had just made a mistake, refusing to fully accept the extent of her actions. I focused on rebuilding my life. My reputation at work was restored, and with the truth out, I could finally move forward. Then Emily tried one last time. She sent me a message begging for forgiveness, claiming she'd lost everything. But I had nothing left to say. I didn't respond. I blocked her, and that was the end. Emily became a distant memory, a cautionary tale of how lies can destroy you.